All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So Darren Mougey is making moves, right? This new front office, they are not wasting any time, right? Re-signing some of their own homegrown players. Garrett Wilson, 4 years, 130, a ton of money guaranteed. Sauce Gardner, 4 years, 120, a ton of money guaranteed as well. Also, side note, highest paid cornerback in football. So now the question goes from what are the Jets going to do with their two superstar players? You know, the obvious answer, okay, these guys should be back with the green and white, but if they don't re-sign, what's going to happen? Could we see training camp holdouts? Could we see a possible trade request from either player? What would a trade back, look like? All that's gone. All that is put to bed. The focus is now, okay, these guys are good to go. They are locked in. They are ready for training camp. No distractions on that front. Awesome. But there's a couple more players on this roster that are on expiring deals, end of the rookie contracts, different situations. Guys that you could pound on the table and say, hey, this guy I want to see on a 2-year extension, a 3-year extension, a 4-year extension. 3 players come to mind. And look, of course, we have other 1-year contracts, right? Like Andre Sisco's on a 1-year deal. John Simpson's on an expiring deal. But for those guys, it kind of just seems like the Jets want to see how the season plays out. And obviously, Sisco was just brought in this past offseason and was handed a 1-year deal. If the Jets felt good about giving him an extension, they should have just given him a 2 or 3-year deal. But in any case, the 3 guys that we need to focus in on, Breece Hall, Vera-Tucker, and Germaine Johnson. I've seen a lot of comments over really these past 48 hours, like in response to, say, a reporter talking about the Garrett Wilson extension or the Sauce Gardner extension, like, hey, Breece Hall next. When's A.V.T's extension going to be announced? Stuff like that. So let's break them down one by one, because I do feel like there's maybe more questions regarding those 3 players compared to Gardner and Garrett here. Let's start with Breece. Now, I think really the short and simple answer for me is if Breece Hall goes out and has a great year, I want the Jets to extend him. If he doesn't have that great year, maybe it's not as productive as we've seen him before in the past. Maybe there's another injury or something like that. He misses more time, or a case where like Braylon Allen and Breece Hall's numbers or roles look very similar within the offense, and you just feel good about that transition, right, where everyone just slots up a spot. Braylon Allen becomes RB1. Isaiah Davis becomes RB2, and then you could figure out what's going on with RB3. Maybe that's Donovan Edwards, right, who the Jets brought in as an undrafted free agent. But again, I think with Breece Hall and the running backs, there's this big debate. Do you pay running backs? Do you let them walk? Do you draft their replacement in the mid-rounds? And I do think it's a good argument to have, right? It's definitely a good debate because we've seen teams reward the running back position. Baltimore Ravens, Derrick Henry, Philadelphia Eagles, Saquon Barkley, they go out and they have a ton of success, right? And another guy, too, that kind of gets lost in the shuffle because he's hurt so much is Christian McCaffrey for the 49ers. When he's on the field, he is a difference maker for that Niners offense. So we've seen teams pass and make the right decision. We've seen teams maybe fumble the decision. We've seen teams pay the running back and have success. We've seen teams pay running backs and it not work out. There's a situation or a scenario that you can point to that has worked out or not worked out in pretty much every single option, right? But again, in regards to Breece Hall, because he's that 2nd-round pick, he doesn't have that 5th-year option like first-rounders here. I personally don't feel the pressure to, re-sign him within this next week. We got to make sure Breece Hall is on a 3 or 4-year extension before training camp starts. I just don't. That thought isn't really crossing my mind. I like Breece a lot. I think he could be a dynamic player within this offense, running the ball, catching the ball, being this explosive playmaker with the football in his hands. And of course, by doing this, you run the risk of paying more, right? If Breece Hall goes out and has a top 5 season and, best season of his career, now all of a sudden the contract could look a little differently compared to negotiations or potential negotiations happening today. So of course you run that risk, but at the end of the day, here are the highest paid running backs in football. It's definitely manageable. It is definitely manageable, right? You can give Breece Hall $10 million per season, $11 million per season. With the cap continuing to go up, it's not really that big of a deal, in my opinion, of course, assuming that he gets better and has a great season this year. The next player here is one of my favorites on the team, a really interesting case study in Vera-Tucker. Now, What are the positives? Obviously, he's one of the best guards in football. I think, honestly, A.V.T is one of the most underrated. I'm not calling him a top 3 guard, but I definitely view him as an above average guard in football. He's just not a guy that gets whooped or beat on a consistent basis. I feel really good about where he is and really where the Jets' interior offensive line is as a whole, but in any case, we've seen some really, really impressive play from A.V.T. Factor in his age, factor in his versatility. My favorite thing about him, right? If you're in a pinch, right? Week 17 rolls around. Olu gets hurt, right? Week 1 of the playoffs, we need a left tackle. You can theoretically take A.V.T, plug him at left tackle, and you're probably going to get some decent play. What a luxury that is. Is that ideal? No. Is it ideal to move him around, practice him at different positions? No, I don't want the Jets to do that. But it's just a feather in his cap. Hey, I could play on the left side. I could play on the right side. I could play guard. I could play tackle. Wherever you need me, I got you. Maybe outside of center. That is sweet. But the downside here, A.V.T has missed a lot of time due to injury. When he's healthy, he's great. That's awesome. He's reliable. You know, I don't think anyone is really questioning Vera-Tucker's on-field performance when healthy, but he missed 2 games last season. He only played in 5 in 2023. He only played in 7 in 2022. He's dealt with a torn Achilles, which is a big-time injury. He's dealt with torn triceps. Now, when that news initially broke, it was weird because I remember certain sources were saying it was a torn tricep. Certain sources were saying torn triceps. And obviously, if you have an injury to one arm, it's a lot different than an injury to 2 arms. I'm still unclear on where exactly, that whole thing stands. Was it both arms? Was it one arm? I still don't know. But what we do know is that he does miss time, unfortunately. So I think right now, again, putting myself in the shoes of Darren Mougey, would I be negotiating a contract at this point in time? I don't think it hurts. I do want to see A.V.T here for the long haul. But of course, it is maybe more risky than handing out a mega deal to Garrett Wilson because of the health. You don't want to, give out a 4-year deal and he's only playing in half the games, right? A 4-year deal, but he's only playing in 2 years over the 4 years when it's all said and done, when you're looking at total numbers. So I honestly think a short extension is fair. A short extension is fair. Maybe a short term, but a high amount. I honestly am cool with that. The Jets have a lot of money in cap space. A.V.T has been a building block. Again, we can talk about the impressive play. We can talk about the versatility. I definitely want to keep A.V.T here. I mean, I want to keep all these guys here, but realistically speaking, you're never going to be in a position where you're just re-signing all of your own players on big extensions. And for context, here are some of the highest paid left guards and right guards in football. This is a position that is constantly shooting up when you're looking at annual value here. It's a valued position. Why? Because quarterbacks are coming into the league more mobile. They're coming into the league maybe not shorter, but I mean, compared to 20 years ago, like the shorter end quarterbacks are just a lot more common. Like you think of a lot of guys that are sub 6'4", sub 6'5". So it's important to have that protection up the middle, because if you have these, bigger, stronger, faster, quicker defensive ends who are just bull rushing the inside or putting a move on a guy and just rushing the quarterback from the inside, all of a sudden you have this massive target in front of your face, if you put yourself in Kyler Murray's shoes, if you're a 6'1" quarterback, a 6'2" quarterback, and that D tackle 6'4", on top of you having to throw over your offensive line, it's going to be very difficult, right? You got to have that protection up the middle. And of course, the run protection, the run blocking goes without saying. So to kind of wrap it up with A.V.T here, I honestly would be cool with a 2 or 3 year extension, bigger money, but shorter term length. And then last but not least, Germaine Johnson. Now, Germaine, I feel like is kind of in the same boat as Breece a little bit. By the way, same draft class, because I'm really just looking at this season, saying to myself, like, what can this dude do in this Aaron Glenn, Steve Wilkes style of defense? Now, of course, he's coming off the Achilles, so it's tough to gauge, right? How is he going to be physically? How is the foot going to be? How good of a fit is he going to be in this defense? It seems like there's a lot of questions right now regarding Germaine Johnson. I will say this though. If you go back and you look at that 2023 season, I mean, this guy was awesome, right? He had 7.5 sacks, 7 passes defended against, 55 tackles, played in every single game, started in every single game, also had a interception as well. 11 tackles for loss. He could hold his own. He can set the edge. You know, when Germaine Johnson is out there and healthy, like this guy can play. He's definitely an NFL player. I loved him back with Florida State. Loved him. I mean, he was one of my favorite players watching all those Seminoles games back in the day. Again, there is a lot of question marks right now, but of course, right, entering year 4, same draft class as Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, you do have that 5th-year option. Now, you could definitely argue Darren Mougey just get out in front of it, right? Do what you did with Garrett, do what you did with Gardner, because if Germaine goes out there and has a good season, puts up 9 sacks, 10 sacks or something, all of a sudden that price tag could look a lot higher, right? Especially if he's healthy and he's good to go. Now, of course, the counter argument, he's still on the rookie deal, right? I feel like Gardner and Garrett, again, they're in a tier of their own when you're just taking a look at the bulk of this Jets roster. Johnson, you don't necessarily have to extend. You can let this full season play out, then enter 2026 on the 5th-year option, still a pretty cheap number, and then pick up negotiations. And I honestly think that that would be the ideal route for me, assuming that he's impressive this season for this team. One thing's for sure, you can never have enough pass rushers. I know that's a cliche statement. I know everyone says that, but you know, in a defense that needs to get after the passer, in a defense that wants to be aggressive, they want to be physical, and you know, we're looking at the defensive end room. It's not like it's this fantastic stacked unit. Like without Germaine Johnson, it's a pretty thin unit. Like even with Germaine Johnson, you could probably argue, yeah, we'd probably need one more guy. So important position, marquee position, but there are some, of course, questions about health, about how he's going to, you know, the onboarding process with the Achilles. There's some talk that he could start training camp on the physically unable to perform list, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. Who would you extend? Who would you not extend? And why? Would love to hear it. Anyway, thanks so much, and as always, go Jets.